and look at the first item on the agenda is the acceptance of the meeting of the 27th, February 27th. Anybody have the minutes for them?
I did take the minutes, but there was only one misspelling on Gloutak, and it was towards the end.
Okay, yeah, actually, that's happened to me a couple times now, so I will figure that out.
Okay.
I noticed some things too. Let's see if I can do that now.
Let me write it down what people are saying, and then I can revise the minutes and send them back out, or?
So that's minimal.
Is it okay if I just tell you now?
Hey.
Or did you want to write it down and then?
I'm just wondering, once I make the corrections, do I send them back out to be then voted on and approved at that point? Or is it the tacit understanding that I will make the corrections and they're approved with the
I
corrections?
think they still have to be accepted formally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a misspelling? Is that it?
That's all it is.
We can
That is
approve
not-
them with a
Yeah, that's
correct
not-
spelling.
The other thing is that, you know, at the top where you have the people who are present,
Yeah.
you should add the people who came to speak. So like Richard Alstrom, Debbie
Okay.
Opperman, and Joe Paul, all should be listed, right? I believe that's how it's done. Is
Okay.
that correct?
I had them listed in where they spoke,
I
but
know.
I can move them back
Do you
up
know,
to the
Mimi,
top.
shouldn't they be listed at the top of the minutes, all the people that were at the meeting?
Well, as it happens, I have a whole stack of planning board minutes, because I have to read them. And
That would be
here's
helpful.
the basic format, so
That would be
Wait,
great.
we just started.
Thank you.
Well, maybe we just started.
And Elaine sent me some notes by email just around condensing things. I made them very detailed last time, so I wasn't exactly sure the level of detail people wanted. And I can condense those.
Okay.
So do you guys want to hold off on accepting the minutes of the 27th?
Can I just give a few more corrections? So it's 337 Chestnut for under the, where you have the overview, number 3, the treasurer's report, not 347, 337. And also you might want to, when you say Marco, you might want to put Marco Crescentini, just to, because there's a lot of Marcos. There's also Marco Morera.
that's Marcos.
Oh, okay, you're right. So maybe it's okay, but I don't know if like we should have last names to make it more formal, but.
I can use those names.
Okay.
That's the only thing, so maybe, is that, Elaine, is it okay to just approve the minutes if corrections are given, or do they have to be made first?
No, the motion is to approve as amended.
Oh, okay.
But, yeah, as far as names go, I kind of told her not to, she didn't have to do that, put everybody what they say, you know, and names.
It's easier to do less than more.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Oh, you mean that she doesn't have to say who said each thing?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we don't
okay.
have to, it's just at the meeting.
So I mean, these are.
So-
The initials could be confusing because RA could be Ryan Allen, or it could be Richard Alston.
Or it could be Reverend Arnold.
Yeah,
Right,
right.
so, Megan, the
Because I
initials,
was like, I don't think
the
I did
initials like RA can be confusing because there's also a lot of RAs, so,
I can just use those names.
okay, great. So are you going to move?
It's easy if I'm not writing down what everyone is saying, then I can take the time to spell names. I was trying to catch the conversation in such detail that I was trying to just do
Yeah.
visuals because it meant that I could
Yeah, no,
quickly
it was
write things
very
down.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah, well, it's up to the committee if you're comfortable with, accepting them with the amendments. It's okay with me.
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to?
Motion make, accept the minutes as stated and amended?
Second.
Do we need
Any more discussion?
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
So we don't need microphones at the table?
Nah.
No, what we do need is, we've got a tape, so we don't need recording during us.
Just speak up, guys, that's all.
Okay.
Okay, so the update on Gloutak property?
Yeah, so, and there's actually another update on the stained glass windows, which is concerning, but their deadline is seems to be May 22nd, is that right, Rosemary?
Yes.
To receive the funds. I don't know if approval is enough by that date?
I think approval is
Okay.
okay. The problem is that we're assuming that the city's gonna want a survey if it gets approved. And so we're thinking that they're gonna want the survey done before they actually do a closing.
Mhm.
So the purchase and sale is for May 22nd. It can go out a little bit. The problem, I think, with a couple of the projects is that they're time sensitive. And
Yeah.
so I think a lot of times open space projects are going to be time sensitive because you go into a purchase and sale agreement and you know, when you look at, okay, we're gonna be done with this by May, and then, so that's what we set up. But also on the stained glass windows too. And for other projects, when you're looking to leverage for funding, then if your leveraging is like stained glass is in March, and all of a sudden they're gonna get an approval by May, if hopefully, then that means they have to go to the following year. And a lot of times, open space projects can be the same, but most of the time
Yeah.
those are in January.
I just want to make people understand that, see, the next scheduled city council meeting, I've been told, is March 19th.
Right.
And that the next finance subcommittee meeting, and they're the ones who would approve the recommendations, their meeting is for April 16th. However, it's Joe McGivern, and I have his email, who runs that, and it's possible.
Hi, my name is Kathy.
Oh, hi, Kathy.
Hi. I was invited to the meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, come on in.
So he would have to be, if he was contacted, he might be able to have that meeting before April 16th. If we're worried about it being a close cutoff. You know, maybe he could be, maybe if Elaine, if you were to contact him or something, or Mike, or, you know, to see, hey, could you do this sooner, because this is a time-sensitive project, you know, maybe they could do it sooner.
Yeah, they could hold a finance meeting just for that issue if they wanted to. If they, you know, like I said, they wanted, they also have another city council meeting before that. They have 2 meetings before April.
Oh, an all-city council meeting?
City council meets twice a month, first and third Tuesday of the month.
Oh, I thought it was only once a month.
No, they meet twice a month, so,
First and third Tuesday?
of every month, yes.
Okay.
So they actually have 2 meetings before that April 16th, so hopefully.
But, yeah, so then it would be important, probably. So that one seems more doable if, you know, but then the stained glass one. The stained glass one, as Rosemary says, she caught in the application that their Mass Historic, what is it, Mass Historic
It's Mass Historic
Commission?
Commission.
That their deadline
grant.
for the matching grant for the stained glass windows for the other 75,000 to do the 3 windows is March 22nd. So that's like really seems impossible. So I spoke to Mike McManus today. He said he would come by to this meeting, but he said that either they could just apply and say that we think that it's likely that we'll be getting this match, but they don't know whether they would just be rejected out of hand for not having the match ironed down. Or they could, I threw out to him, well, what if you were to ask for more than 75,000? You know, I don't know if the committee would accept it, but, you know, if you were to ask for 150,000, and then could you do the 3 windows just with the CPA money? He said, well, he would be inclined to want to hold on to that match again for next year, because then he could get a larger match with MHC. However, if it was a condition of the committee that, oh, we want to see some work done on the stained glass windows, that maybe they could do it sooner.
Well, when is the next city council meeting?
March 19th, I think.
And their deadline is March.
Is March 19th a Tuesday? Let's just look.
Their deadline
Yes.
is March 20.
Second.
Okay,
So-
because it seems to me, and of course we have city councilor here who can correct me, it isn't technically necessary that they get approval from the finance committee. The whole city council could decide to take this out of order and vote on it.
Right.
It is the city hall windows, and I don't think there's any controversy about our wanting to do this.
But I did speak with Ryan Allen, and I think it was Ryan, and he said that it would go to the finance committee.
It
That's
wouldn't-
normal.
But it doesn't have to.
Okay.
But,
Uh-huh.
you know, I'm thinking late filed order to write up the recommendation.
Well, it wouldn't be late file now, would
It
it?
wouldn't, I guess it
No,
wouldn't
we
even
can
have to
put
be
it-
late filed.
I've
As
got
long as we
till-
put it in by Friday, it wouldn't be
Friday,
like,
yeah.
Yeah, because
So-
I'm sure we could write up, you know, assuming we decided to
Unofficial.
suspend our own rules and vote on it. I would think we could
Okay, you
get-
want to do it this evening? Excuse me for
I
interrupting.
mean, I would, assuming that nobody can think of a reason we shouldn't, be inclined to do it this evening and get it to you guys, because, you know, again, I don't want to speak for the city council, I'm not a member, but I can't imagine that this won't get approved.
So we would take that one
Yeah.
and then send the rest to the regular finance
Yeah.
committee meeting.
well, we're not gonna send them all, we're just gonna send the one now
Just
and
because
later.
this is an emergency.
The
Right.
stained glass one you're talking
Yeah.
about? Uh-huh.
When it comes up, you'll have to explain what's the story, why we're pushing that one through early.
Yeah.
And would they consider to vote on it that night?
Oh, so if they did vote on it on March 19th,
Right.
we'd be good.
And so one point in their application was that they had already gone before city council last year and made their presentation, and so maybe you can help them with this. And so it's just gave us a small briefing about that they presented, but city council felt that maybe they could get funding somewhere else, which is why they came to CPA initially. So I think that city council is pretty aware of the project and has already had the presentation. So I don't think it's that big a deal to have them vote sooner than later.
Find out.
Yeah,
All you do is ask.
there you go.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Madam Chair, do you want to do that?
Yes.
Any objection?
Oh, you're going.
No, I
Okay,
think
so
that's a
are you
great
gonna
idea.
vote on it now then, or?
Sure.
Why not?
Well, I think that
Or do you-
Councilor Sullivan had something to say,
Yeah.
or was I?
No, it's just a comment.
Do you-
I don't think that this one's gonna be at all controversial with the council.
Yeah.
Do you wanna wait this till Mike McManus gets here? Because I told him.
Oh, he's
to come.
coming tonight?
Yeah.
No, I
You
You're
can
gonna tell him
I think the
just
best,
go home.
Yeah, tell them to have
we're
us
gonna
decide.
try to push it through.
Let's just go, it's-
Okay,
let's
I'm
just-
sure he'll be
And
glad
actually-
if he thinks you can push it through and like, he has a chance of doing the match. But,
Actually,
you know,
all we
just
can
letting
do
you
is
know,
what
I
we
told
can
him to
do.
come.
Actually.
All we can do, and then it's in the hands of the city council to deal with.
Right. And
So
actually,
we're sending a message that this
Yeah.
needs
Mhm.
to be.
And
Tom is not on
actually,
our side.
actually, he could go there Tuesday night.
Yeah, he could.
And be at that meeting, and
And that would be-
if there's any questions for some reason, he'd be there.
Oh, do any of us need to be there for
No,
them?
That was my question.
It-
Send Mike.
Well, Mike will be there.
Yeah.
I'll be there. It would be maybe good if someone was there to back me up
Mhm.
with some facts or,
No, Mike
Yeah,
McManus,
probably.
Mike
Yeah.
will be there for you.
Or-
yeah.
Should I be there or not?
No.
If
Mimi
Mike-
said
I
she
don't
would
think
go.
so. I don't think so.
If Mike's there or Mimi's there.
Okay, but, so in other words, like this draft that I was working on today, I would create something like that, but just for the stained glass with details about the stained glass application.
Right.
Which, would I email that to you, Elaine, or
What the,
the actual recommendations?
no, Mike will put in the order. Yes.
So I would email to you?
City council
Yeah.
is the only ones that can put in an order.
So I don't know how an order's put in, that's what I'm trying to.
Just give it to him like this,
Just email to Mike,
and he will do it, yeah.
okay.
Well, Madam Chairman,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the stained glass window project for the city hall.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that's
It's
the full
official.
funding.
Yeah.
of $75,000.
Yes. This is,
Okay. So anything more about the Gloutak one?
So I think that if Gloutak goes in on March 19th, and do you think that the finance would probably look at it for a month? Or how would it go? I mean, I guess they'd have to know by May, the beginning of May or the end of April, if it's a yes or a no, because then if the project either stays or goes away.
So I don't know, it might be something that you want to vote on in this meeting. too.
I would hope that the ones that we actually looked at the last meeting that we felt were kind of, I mean, we phrased it as slam dunks for the beginning of, that we would move all of those forward.
Yeah, I would be inclined to do that too. They're all, you know, the projects that the five of us remaining at the tail end of that meeting thought were relatively easy, are all things that it'll be easy to write up detailed recommendations for. I think, you know, they are more or less non-controversial, and we might want to do a second wave of recommendations for things that we think are more difficult, that require some explanation. But whether the city council wants to vote these up or down, I think they're all straightforward. The only question that we've got about any of them, I think, is whether we want to recommend the full, both stages funding of the
Boys and Girls.
Boys and Girls Club project, or whether we want to just recommend phase one for this cycle and phase two for the next cycle. And that may depend on what other stuff is before us and whether we need to hold back any funds to deal with any of it.
I also want to share some information though that I learned from Stuart Saganor that's important for everyone to know, and if Mike brought up a question, then this answers. I had asked him 3 crucial questions, and one was just how, what the powers are of the city council once they get the recommendations. And he said that their actions are, the legislative body's actions are limited to the fact that they may approve, reduce, or reject recommended amounts. So they can actually reduce the amount that's requested. And this, I'm not sure what this means, maybe you understand this. He said they may reserve all or part of the amount recommended for a specific project to applicable reserve.
Isn't that just the housing, open space?
I think
So
they
we'll take
they
it.
would reduce, if they reduce it, it goes back into the reserve.
Okay, maybe that's what it means.
Oh, okay.
And then the last thing is they may not increase recommendations
Right.
or initiate appropriations from a fund reserve.
They can't add
From
on
any
to
of
it.
those. Correct. And also, I was correct when I asked about the historical rehabilitation projects that happen to be on affordable housing. When I asked what category that falls into, he said they would fall under the historic reserve category, regardless of the use, since they don't apply, what the work they're doing doesn't, is not allowable under affordable housing. And then I asked about the restrictions, just to ask, I asked, is it just best practices to have term restrictions when a project is not an acquisition? Remember that conversation? And he said it's not required if it's not an acquisition. However, as I emailed people, he said the anti-aid law forbids funding on private entities, especially churches. That might have been my own. Because there was a big case in Acton that was a big controversy where 13 taxpayers sued Acton because of a project funding that went from the CPA toward a church. So it may not always be that you can't fund churches, but it must have a public benefit. And Salem has a raging debate going on. People are asking, why are my tax dollars going to pay to fix a private owner's roof? So that's why CPA communities get term restrictions to ensure the public benefit. Although I think even in the case of that church in Acton, I think they did secure a restriction. And in the end, I think the applicants withdrew because it was such a controversy. So this could affect all of our private applicant projects, including the developer incentive projects. Although it could be argued like the Armory is an icon of Holyoke that has a public benefit, it's historically significant, and people just seeing the exterior of, say, the Armory or the train station, or any of these, like the church, on Appleton, that's what you're here about, that you could say that the public is getting some benefit just from seeing, these beautiful buildings restored that are important to Holyoke. So that's why we need the legal counsel. So it's a convoluted.
Yeah, and that's also, I think, why we need the deed restriction, whether we go to 5 or 10 years on the Boys and Girls Club. It just ensures that we have a public benefit and we
Yeah.
don't get in trouble with the anti-aid amendment. But the Boys and Girls Club, you know, is relatively easy.
That's almost a non-issue.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. I'm just-
But it still
that's
needs to be
what I'm
put
saying.
in place there, and also something about what is expected during that restriction, like that it must remain, have certain hours.
But that, I mean, as I say, that's relatively easy.
Yeah.
That's why we
Did you?
put it in the list of easy things last time.
No.
But it's a species of the same problem.
My only concern about deed restrictions and anything of that sort is who's going to watch them after, who's going to oversee them.
Yeah.
I mean, fine, maybe there'll still be, hopefully, the CPA commission, but they're gonna have to keep track of all these deed restrictions.
That's why I was asking
I
about
think
the
it's-
What deed
Holyoke
restrictions?
Historic Commission.
What deed restrictions? Why are we creating hurdles? We haven't got there yet. Why don't we just take it one step at a time?
Well, we are at that step right now. We
Yeah, but
have to
just-
decide, if we're gonna be voting on the Boys and Girls Club, we have to vote on decide on a deed restriction.
Let's stick with the Hoyok Boys Club as a particular institution and project. Let's stick with that,
Okay,
so we can arrive at a conclusion.
okay.
Yeah, and the idea is not to create any hurdles. When we discussed it, we all pretty much agreed that they're open to the public anyway. They want to continue being open to the public.
Right.
They have no problem with making that formal by way of some sort of deed restriction for some term of years. We're going to have to get the help of the solicitor's office probably to get that written appropriately. But the reason that we have to do it, as opposed to just handing them the money and ignoring it, is because it protects them and us from a challenge to the grant under this anti-aid amendment, which could otherwise forbid us from funding them as a non-government entity.
But I'd be hard pressed to think the Boys Club would be in, that danger would occur with the Hoyok Boys Club that you just alluded to, simply because they're open. I mean, 360, they're open almost every day of the year.
Well, we're not going to, practically speaking, have a problem, which is one reason they're not objecting to this. It just makes it very clear what our legal grounds are for doing it. And, you know, just ignoring a requirement in state law when it's simple to comply with seems like why would we do that?
Yeah.
Well, it's simple to comply with, but who's going to make sure that it's complied with?
We
Later on.
don't
Well,
have to
and-
worry about enforcement, we just have to get the deed restriction.
Yes, we have to worry about,
Oh,
why
all
put
right.
it in if we're
Take
not.
Monday, take Tuesday, we'll walk
I
around the
think that
neighborhood.
sort of restriction is simpler than the historic one.
Yeah,
For the
this is
historic one, you need a special consultant who documents the
Exactly.
look of the building. It's gonna
Exactly.
be simpler to report a deed on this with the Holyoke and Girls and Boys Club. In fact, I didn't even mention that as one of the ones that I was asking Crystal Barnes about, because I didn't see that as something that, like Mike is saying, I didn't see this as something that people would object to, given that we do have a term restriction, you know.
Yes,
So-
it should be easy, it's not a
Yeah.
problem, it just.
So we just voted on the stained glass, and I think the conversation was going towards, are we going to send all of this out of committee straight to the council? I think we should go the normal route with
Yeah.
this through the finance committee, because there's gonna be a lot of questions
Yeah, yeah.
for the rest of these.
Yeah.
Right.
Stained glass is going Thursday,
Mhm. Right.
19th, and then the rest of this will be submitted to the finance committee for review, because I think you may have to speak to
Well, we
someone.
don't submit it to the finance, we submit it to the full council and they send it to the finance, if they want, if they choose, they don't have to.
My point was, I prefer we only send the glass to the.
Yes,
to the-
yes.
I don't think Mimi has a copy of that. Megan, could you share your
I can
copy?
share it.
Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Just to be clear, because I think I started this, what I was thinking, and what I thought the group was thinking last time, was, you know, yes, we're not going to send everything as an emergency to the city council, because for one thing, it isn't, just the stained glass.
Right.
But the things that we had reached a semi-consensus on last time that will be easy to recommend, we might want to recommend or vote on a recommendation now for those 5 or whatever it was, and get that process moving in normal order so there are no delays. Not send it directly to the city council, but
But we don't have the deed, if the committee wants a
do
deed
any of these-
restriction, we don't have that ready yet.
we don't have to have it ready. All we
Why
have to
don't
do
we?
is explain the recommendation. We
So
don't have to have it
what
like
else
that.
needs a deed restriction? The Gloutak is mandatory under open space.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the lanterns, do they need a deed restriction?
No.
No. How about Smithsbury Cemetery?
But maybe before we move on to that, at least
Nothing
determine,
owned by the public needs it.
Right, so
Should it
there's
be-
nothing on this other than the Boys and Girls
should it be
Club.
a 5 or 10-year restriction, for example, on the Holyoke Boys and Girls Club? That could be something the committee could decide.
5 years.
Yes.
Second?
I make a motion, we make a 5-year restriction at the Hoyok Boys Club.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
But you haven't yet voted to accept the Holyoke Boys
Well,
and
we
Girls
will.
Club.
Well, we did the deed restriction now, so that's done.
Okay, but are you gonna, all right.
So,
So-
go ahead.
Well,
Kip,
for-
you wanted
for
to
point of
speak,
order.
go ahead.
If we want to, last time we did have the preliminary conversation, everyone was at the table at that time, right? Had consensus on those projects that were in the meeting, or that were in the minutes. We could at this point have that conversation and just vote to make that official. I think that the
We're getting to that.
conversation was that there's more people at the table that people felt comfortable voting in that moment.
Yeah, we're getting there. I think we will do that tonight. So Kip, please go ahead, you wanted to say something.
I forgot what I was gonna say. I mean,
Deed
I think, the deed restriction, an example of Boys and Girls Club, I don't think anybody has a problem with a 5-year deed restriction. I don't think they have a problem with a 5-year deed restriction. My concern becomes, does that drafting of a deed restriction, a negotiation of attaching it to their application, delay the city council's action on approving? That means we have to get that done. Someone has to draft up a deed
Oh,
Someone
restriction.
has
you're
to
bringing
go.
up an important point. It also
Yeah.
has to be paid for, and what I was thinking earlier is it should come out of their own budget. So that means that we might have to ask them to work that into change the actual budget request to work that
And
in.
not only that, someone has to go to Springfield and do the actual
Well,
work.
and somebody
Well,
on
they
the
could do it.
city side,
Required, it's a condition of the
Right.
committee that they have that.
I'm not sure about that. I think
Yeah, they can.
they can go down there and do their own deed restriction.
They just have their own legal counsel in Boys Club.
Okay.
Hang on. I thought that I thought the Hoyok, we just put it down that we want this, what the deed restriction is, and that the city solicitor takes it from there.
Well, that's the hope.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought. I mean, I just went through this with Hoyok Redevelopment Authority, all right? They put a deed restriction on a piece of property they sold for $1.
Okay.
That's it. They put a deed restriction, there can't be
So,
this there.
so
And
who did it? Who did the work?
HRA.
so this was,
And
that
just
was,
all they do is they send it to legal and do.
Our legal department?
Yeah.
Okay.
so that was my question, was does imposing a deed restriction complicate the approval process for the city council? And I'm just putting myself in a seat where I'm voting to approve the funding of something with a condition that there's a 5-year deed restriction. I might want to see that deed restriction first, which means now that someone's got to draft it. There's two sides of an agreement. The Boys Club has to agree that their lawyer's going to look at it and say, yeah, deed restriction is acceptable, and then it's going to go. Or is the city council going to be willing to vote to approve it with this, boilerplate language of a deed restrictions promise to be added in later? That's all, that was my point. If we do,
Me too, yes.
and my only concern is like, what's the cost benefit of this deed restriction, right? If the cost is it complicates the process and delays it and they don't get approved, that's a big cost. What's the benefit of it? That we're gonna get it?
Kip, what's the cost?
Not the
think
money
it's that
cost, the
much.
time cost, I'm just like, does that, adding a legal document to an application, that now either that legal document has to be drafted and attached to the
You
document,
mean
or
to
the
the
people that are
contractors,
gonna,
we're gonna have contracts.
or the people that are gonna vote to approve it are gonna say, I'll vote to approve the funding of it contingent upon there being an acceptable deed restriction attached to it. That's my only point.
I don't
Are we
believe it.
making it more complicated than?
I don't believe it holds anything up at all.
Okay, that was my question. I didn't say,
I just wanna
I
make
mean, we
sure.
see these
Okay,
all
sorry.
the time.
Yeah.
All the time, all the time. Terms and conditions, I mean, the ones they put on these marijuana groups, they're approved, and it goes off to legal, they write it up. And as far as Boys Club attorney looking at it, they got no say in it. This is why we agreed to give you the funds, you got this deed restriction, if you don't agree to it, you don't get the money.
Their
You
board
know?
of directors has to vote for it, so. I mean, I
Then-
think
then-
it's,
How often do they
then
meet?
If they don't accept the deed restriction, they don't get the money.
exactly.
Yeah.
well, wait a minute.
It's a one-way
Wait a
street.
minute,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Who says if they don't accept the deed restriction, they don't get the funding? That's a vote of the board. I'm not saying, it's like, I would vote to approve it without a deed restriction. I don't think we need a deed restriction. The Boys Club's been there for 100 years, they're gonna be there for the next 10. Like, why are we making work for ourselves if we don't
Because
just
we
keep?
should not, as an institution, be voting to approve things when we know that the terms we're applying are questionable under state law.
Well,
What state?
well, aren't they
The
all?
anti-aid amendment,
Yes.
That was.
I mean, aren't they all though? I mean, if we want to go down that road, I mean, who the
It is gonna say.
I know, I understand that, but so that means we do no private funding because the anti-amendment.
The anti-aid amendment, if we impose the deed restriction, gives us a public benefit and puts us in the clear. That's
It
the way
does.
we're doing it, yes.
Said, what judges said that? Where's that determination that a 5-year deed restriction means that it's for the public benefit and
It
nobody
is-
can challenge
I
it?
have not looked up the law, I admit, but it is on the basic CPA website that the deed restriction allowing for public access is one of the things that people routinely use to demonstrate public benefit for CPAs.
It could, it can be, but it doesn't have to be, that's
Right.
the thing.
Well, I was
That's
just
just my
talking
point.
about how in Acton, 13 taxpayers sued Acton and it's
That-
slowed.
that-
So
that
we
was-
But they
don't,
had a
was
deed
gonna sue
restriction,
us
you
for
said.
this.
I think that they did, but I'm just
It
saying
doesn't-
that,
But
but yeah, but it was different, it was for a church,
But that was-
so.
But it could have just as well been for the Acton Boys Club.
I don't
And-
really, I don't know, I really don't agree at all. I really think that it's Stuart Saginaw has told me that we must have some kind of restriction on that to show that it's for the public benefit. So, I mean, if you want to ignore all the advice that we're getting, I don't think it's a good idea.
No, I'm just
So-
saying that that doesn't get you over the hump of there's no risk of people coming in and complaining.
Right,
the
but
public money-
it's still better
it's-
than nothing.
It is better, it is better than nothing. Do you,
There is always some risk, but it
Right.
is not the same risk as we are sitting here on tape voting to ignore the public benefit requirement.
I mean, I can
That's-
come up with a
that's okay that
determination.
We can talk like that, we can talk
I
about it.
think, I mean, I can, there's a public benefit to that money being used at the Hoyok Boys Club, whether there is or is not a deed restriction. I understand putting a deed restriction on it may provide some legal protection, but it's not ultimate legal protection.
Didn't we just vote for it?
Yes,
Yes.
we did, we did.
I'm not arguing we don't do it, other than I'm asking Mike, are we gonna slow things up if we start looking at these deeds? What's the cost of putting them all
Can
on
I
these
just
things?
say that
What's the
I don't
time?
have those original notes in front of me, but I think it was $50 or $60. And when I spoke to Alicia Zoller, it's a very routine thing
And-
that's done all the time. And she said it's easy and it,
Maybe
it's
the
not.
I'm not arguing against doing it. I'm saying, if it's no problem, let's do it. We voted to do it. I'm not arguing that we should not be doing it. I'm arguing that it isn't the save all for everything, and for some projects, it may not be worth the effort, and it may not be necessary. Only necessary if someone challenges the funding of the Boys Club that says that that wasn't in the public benefit. I don't know what the chances of that
I mean, we
happening.
can't guarantee that you never know what will happen. They
Of
could
course.
sell it. It does have some legal protection.
There's
I
some.
mean, the money would come back if it was, and that the details have to be fleshed out for it. But, just because you've known of this institution forever that's not a safeguard, against what could happen the very next day, so.
My
It's just a basic rule of thumb to do this, so,
I
anyway,
understand.
you've already voted it in.
But we didn't, my understanding is we voted to make it a 5-year, we didn't
Yeah.
vote to do it.
Okay,
We didn't actually vote.
that's right, you didn't vote to do it.
Yes, so, but, you know, it's up to the committee, but as long as we can, as long as it's not necessary for us to have a deed restriction at this point before we present it to the city council, you know, then it's okay.
Well, the reason why it would be important to iron that out is, as I said, some of that money would probably have to come out of their budget request, and that would have to be included in the orders that go to city council.
I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm thinking that if the law department does this all the time, then maybe the funding will come from the law department to do that.
No, there's a cost, but it's not.
Yeah, there is a
Yeah.
cost, but maybe they will take it out of their
I
budget.
don't think so.
Is that what they do when they do a deed restriction?
I believe so. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna take it out of their budget. The
What's
Boys
that?
Club will fund the deed restriction in order to get this $200,000.
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
of course. Yeah, I mean, a couple
What did you
$100,
say?
$100?
They're absolutely gonna take care of the administrative burden to get this large grant.
Yeah.
It's on them.
Because there'll be other costs besides this too.
Right, that's what I think.
Okay.
And the other thing that Megan brought up is the CPA signs, you know, having some sort of signage saying this project is funded by CPA.
Yes.
I had brought that up at a previous meeting, saying that that could come out of the applicant's budget, since we're so low on admin budgets for this
They
year.
always come out of their budget, not ours. We never pay for the signs. We never pay for the
What do you
signs.
mean, you've never had a funding round?
The CPA doesn't pay for the signage. I read that in their,
No, actually, that's not true. I mean, I'm sorry, but I've spoken to Stuart Zagner about it, and they do it in different ways. Lots of times it comes out of the admin budget.
well,
Most of the time
it's
it
my
does.
understanding that I'm against that right.
Well, that's why
Even
I
if we had the money to do it, I would not
Well-
want the signs to come out of our
Well,
budget.
there's a reasoning for it, because
Yeah.
if you can do it out of the admin budget, you can reuse the signs and they're more consistent across the board, so people recognize, you know, the logo. Whereas if you have the different projects doing their own signage, it's
Well,
all
that-
like a mishmash.
Yeah, they'll have to come to us with their signage and make sure we like it, so
So
it's coming out of.
a
their budget.
requirement to the applicants that are recommended and funded, and what we're gonna put to the city council is that we recommend their funding with, and the Boys Club with two conditions. One, that there's a deed restriction for 5 years, and second, that they put a sign up that says that there's CPA funding.
Actually, they may be willing to put up those things and pay for that deed restriction outside of this, so we don't even have to mention it in there. You know,
Well,
it
but-
may not
but-
be something they want to take out of it. They already have this budget set for what they want to do, and there's nothing in there about a deed
Right,
restriction
right.
or a sign.
Well, they didn't.
So
They have to
might
come up with
have
other
to-
money.
So they'll have to just pay, maybe they have a small fund that they can pay for that outside of the CPA funding.
But
Well, one of the things about having a sign on projects that we do
Mhm.
is that it shows the people
Right.
in the city that these are projects that are actually being funded by the money that you're paying in.
Oh, I agree.
If they
Yes.
don't know
Right.
where they are, and in
We have to have the sign.
I don't know if there's
I'm not against
any-
the sign.
any towns that it doesn't come out of CPA money. I would challenge it. I think all
Well,
CPAs
let's put it
pay for
this way.
signage.
For
Yeah,
this
they do
year,
the admin
for
budget.
this
Right.
year, we cannot afford to do signs.
Right, right.
Maybe
Yeah.
next fiscal year, we can
Right.
do signs.
But the question is,
But
will
not
we
now.
require that all the projects have some sort of sign?
Oh,
Which I
yes,
think would be good.
yes.
And whether they are allowed to add a little money into their budget, you know, for it, if they really need it, you know?
Well, it's too late to do
I
that.
don't think they
Can't do
can
it.
be amending the amounts of their request at this
Yeah,
point to
no,
put
we
in
can,
a.
right, exactly.
They gotta, I mean, that's why I said, I think the wording is that we're recommending funding to the city council, and we're suggesting that there should be two conditions on that funding. Our would be a deed restriction, and that the recipient is required to put up a funded by CPA sign. If you want to put it out there like that, or you just don't and then ask them to do it and hope they do. But if you want to make it part of the deal, that's to be part of the deal.
It would have to, we can't do that now to these applicants because we didn't tell them up front. The next applicants, we will. There's nothing we can do about that now, and either,
What if they can't afford to do the deed restriction? They can't.
well, we,
Why can't we let them just slightly adjust their funding request?
because we're just gonna hold everything up. We want to,
Well, we're meeting tomorrow also. I could try to contact them
Okay.
before tomorrow.
Let's get it all done today.
I don't know, well, you know,
If
it's,
we meet tomorrow, you can hold the vote tomorrow, just a thought.
You got another word in? We're arguing about the price of a sign and a $60, maybe $60 deed restriction, not a $200,000 project. They'll find the money.
that's right,
They'll-
that's what I'm
This is-
saying,
this
let's
is-
not
this
worry
is
about
cra- Yeah,
that.
this is crazy.
I just also want to mention something when you were talking, Kip, about the application and the deed, that there is the other very large step of drawing up contracts, you know, with what the work is supposed to be and
Yeah.
for all parties.
But whose job is that?
Well, the
It's a lot
city
of-
solicitor will have to work
With who?
well, that's the thing, my hours are more limited, so I'll do what I can, but it would be great for one of you to step in and work with me and,
Is that this committee's job to develop that agreement with it, funding, or is it coming out of the city council office who's
No, the law
enter into the
department is
agreement?
going to.
But,
The law department has.
okay, the law department will draft it up and they'll
Yes.
get input from whoever they need input from.
well,
Right,
they'll need
exactly.
decisions made by this committee to decide like what the deadlines are for each aspect of the work and the expectations, you know. So she's not gonna know the details.
So,
Well, that's one of the reasons that we're starting with the extremely simple projects.
Right,
But just to step back a second, I have the sense that there is some concern that we need to have all the contracts drawn up before the city council can vote, and I don't think that's the case.
no,
That's not the case
no,
at all.
No,
no, I'm not saying that.
That's after.
Okay, yeah, after.
I'm
because-
just sort of reminding people that that's a whole big process
Yeah,
too.
Yeah.
yeah, but only after the city council has approved these things do we get to the point where we have to.
Yeah, they would drop the
Yeah.
line, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, right, exactly. because
Yeah,
you
Right,
have to do it
that's
otherwise.
true.
so I basically don't want to
No,
go
let's,
any more trouble
yeah.
at this stage than.
Let's
we
take
need to.
this one step at a time. We're getting stuff ready to go in front of the city council, so let's concentrate on that right
Should
now.
we listen to our guest here?
No,
Not now?
no.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, are we going to move on to the Hoyok Boys Club this evening?
We're right in the middle of voting on this, but that's a separate issue. Okay, so anyways, what did you ask?
Madam Chairman, we're going to vote on the Hoyok Boys Club,
Wow.
accept it to pass it through to the city council.
I would like to vote as all of the ones that we mentioned that we wanted to move forward as a package. We're gonna take out the stained glass windows, and then the rest of them we're gonna put in as a package. The ones that we have preliminary, if we agree tonight that we want to move them all forward, the ones that we already mentioned.
So you want to vote on, by way of an example, the first one would be, for example, the Hoyok Boys Club.
No, it would be
No.
the entire package.
So everything but the
Part of the
city
package, there
glass.
are components of it. The
All
Boys
those
Club.
things
We're
except.
going for
glass
that
and the
all
others.
of those.
Right, exactly. You
But-
want to
but-
do it in one individual, or do you want to do it as one complete package?
We're voting
As
for
a
one
package.
All right.
But I
Okay.
don't, okay, so I just need clarification. I think you should vote on them individually, but
Agreed.
I also, like the Boys and Girls Club, when we did the preliminary, did we not vote to do just the first phase? That's what our vote was last time. It wasn't for the entire amount.
We said we needed to have additional conversation around whether or not we would fund phase 2.
Okay. So if you're going to phase them or vote them in as a group, then remember that the Boys and Girls Club is just the first phase.
Yeah.
Okay. I just-
And we'd be voting again later on the second phase?
We could vote later on the second phase if it turns out that we have the funding.
If we have the funding.
We
Or-
will.
mean
or we
for
can
this
send a
funding
letter
round
of-
or
of-
next
With this funding now.
Madam Chairman, couldn't we also formulate a letter that's saying upon July 1st, when we receive funding, we promise the Hoyok Boys Club that we will fund the second phase? Is that doable?
We probably could do that.
Because they're going to be, I would have to think the Hoyok Boys Club, when they go out to
Yeah, they want to do it
organizations.
this year, yeah.
Well, hold on, when they ask for different grants, they can say, yeah, we got the money for the first phase.
Yeah.
We got a letter here, a promissory note that says July 1st, we're going to get the balance of it. So Mr. People's Bank, or whatever the case might be, you're in good stead.
Here's the thing, when we're done voting on all the projects that we're gonna do, we may have money left in the reserve.
There is gonna be a lot of money in
So we can fund phase two, am I correct? Andrew? on
We
that?
could.
Yes.
Okay.
So, you know, that's why we wanted to maybe do that in 2 phases. In other words, we'll send phase 2 in with the projects that are gonna be a little bit more.
So we're gonna send
Later.
3 recommendations to the city council. One for the stained glass,
Mhm.
one for these other projects, and then a third one,
At a later date.
maybe.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna have another one because we have plenty of other projects.
Unless we talk about some of them tonight.
We have all the other projects that we didn't decide anything on yet. So that's gonna be a third, whatever you want to call it.
Madam Chairman, you want, is the will of the board to do this individually, by voting individually, or on the complete package as it's stated in front of us? What is the will of the board?
I'm happy to go as a package, but
I'd prefer to see it go individual,
Why do you think that, Mike?
because there's one here I can't vote for in good conscience.
Okay.
Well, Madam Chairman, do you
Yeah,
want to go
I
as?
guess we'll have to, in that case, then, yeah, because we don't want someone to be voting no for the whole package if there's only one part that they don't like.
I'd vote yes for the whole package.
You
I
would?
wouldn't be happy about it.
Okay,
I
so
get-
let's
I get-
go for the whole
Okay,
package.
I get 2 more bites at the apple. I'm on finance and city council, so, you know.
You said so.
If it moves this meeting along.
Yeah, Marco?
I did meet with the Holyoke Historical Commission last night, and I do have some information regarding 43 Canal Street, if that matters.
Well, that's not in our list at this point.
Oh, so that's not in the package?
Not
we're-
this package.
Oh, sure.
I see that.
I guess we
Oh,
finished this
here.
up after you had to leave last time, but these were the ones that the 5 of us were
Yeah,
able
it's there.
felt were easy to do and we all agreed on.
With that nice spreadsheet you
Okay,
put together.
great. Yeah, that's a bigger
So
one.
that's what's happening.
And, well, and so I do have, there were those 4 questions posed, and I do have responses to those, you know, regarding the, regarding the, one was there was the, whether or not they would, you know, have expertise on work, and whether there was a deed restriction question overseeing the awarded projects. I can get into that if the time is right.
Oh, you got the answers, great.
I think I did, yeah. I don't know that it's what we wanted, but.
Okay.
Okay, so, all right, then maybe we should vote on whether we want to do a package first. You want to do that, and then, okay, so,
Move to accept them as a package, or vote on them as a package.
And the ones that would be in the package are Holyoke Boys and Girls Club, Smith's Ferry Cemetery, Annex Lanterns, and Gloutak Woods.
So just the first phase of the Boys and Girls Club.
Yes,
Yes.
okay, so is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. I oppose. 2 opposed.
Okay, 2 opposed, so, all right, so the majority rules, though, we're gonna vote it as a package. So, now I'll take a motion to vote them, and for them as a package to present to the, city council,
So moved.
as is. Second,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So was there any, no's on that?
No.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Madam Chairman, may I, if you allow and the board allows, I would like to, but the Hoyok, if there is money at this stage of the ballgame, because of the nature of the Hoyok Boys Club and the, and what it does for the city and the taxpayers and so on and so forth, could we, if there's money still in the kitty, after all things are done, could we award the second phase, or at least give them a promissory letter that we will give them
Absolutely.
at the juncture in time as our pocketbook allows?
If the board approves that we do that phase 2, if we have money left.
There is
so
money
that-
left over.
So if we have the money,
There's money left over, but we have 6 projects left to
Yes.
discuss. I'd like to get
Oh,
through
that's
those,
true.
and then we go
Right.
back
And
to the
then-
second
yeah.
phase.
that's right, exactly.
Well, I lumped the second phase of the Hoyok Boys Club in with the other projects
Yes,
for consideration.
exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
Does that work for you? Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good. Okay, so, I don't know, is there anything else we need to discuss tonight except for what Mark, as
So
far
we're
as the
in-
project goes?
So I just have one question,
Yeah.
Mike.
Yep.
How come you get all these votes instead of just either voting with city council or voting here? Why do you get a double vote? It's like double dipping to me.
Oh,
He's a member here.
I know, but,
He's Irish.
no, but I'm just trying to get the concept of it.
Because
Could you help me
I
out?
just also happen to be on the finance committee.
No, I know that.
Right.
Okay,
It's
so you get a vote
democracy.
there too,
I
yeah.
get to vote at the finance
Yeah,
committee and I get. to
I just,
vote
I,
at the
it
full
just
city
seems like
council.
you should only get one vote.
No, why? Because he's a city council representative on the
Yeah,
CPC
He's a
committee.
member of this
Well,
board.
it is
a
And so
city
he votes here, and then he goes and he
But
votes
most
at the finance
CPA
committee, and votes in the
communities,
full
just so you
city
know, they
council.
don't usually have a city councilor on
On
their
the,
city.
on the
What?
board.
Yeah.
That's an unusual thing.
That's
about
our
Holyoke.
ordinance,
It's
our
Holyoke.
city council.
It's our
did that.
ordinance for Holyoke.
Oh, local rule,
Yeah.
but that's the ordinance.
Yeah.
And that might be why people voted to approve it too.
Well,
So it's
actually,
Well,
not
the
just
city
a burden.
council voted to approve it,
no,
not
it was
the
hugely
people.
controversial. It came in after.
The city council were pretty much working on that in the blind. They really didn't have a good idea of what this was all about, which is why we already had to make some changes to the ordinance to fit in with what we actually are doing, especially our calendar. But,
Right.
you know, we'll see down the road. We can always ask for changes to the ordinance down the road if there's other things that we find that don't work for us, but
But meanwhile,
for now, it's
much better
working.
about
It's
pushing
working for us
Mike's
now.
vote, knowing that Mike would have plenty of other chances to object.
Yes.
Me too.
Well,
That's democracy. I mean, that's-
the prerogative, right?
It's just coincidence that I'm on the finance committee. I'm on, every
Yeah.
council gets assigned. I'm on
Yeah.
development, government relations, and finance. The
Yeah.
previous year before, I was on the joint committee, which isn't what it sounds like, but with the school
It might
committee
in
and
the
city
future.
council.
Okay.
As I say, I
All
didn't-
right, so
So I just had, that was just, of all the other.
for tonight, we're all done projects. For
Just, I
discussion
just,
on projects.
I just want to make sure I
Well, no,
understand.
wait, we're all done projects, so yes, we're gonna have Mark over. Yeah, go
But I
ahead.
just want to make sure I
Yes.
understand. So now we're going to draft this up formally for this, and we're going to get it to Mike, and Mike's going to bring it to the city council. And the city council's going to, we have to have two things that are going to them, right? Two
Yes.
letters.
First, the
Yeah.
stained glass windows.
Right.
And the rest of the projects, and they're going to go to the city council, and the city council's going to do with them what they want.
They're gonna do
They
nothing.
may go, they
They're gonna
may,
send them to
both may
finance.
go to finance, neither, one may go to finance, neither may go to finance, and then they're gonna vote.
I
So
hope the state
One
last.
will definitely go to finance.
one will definitely go to
The group
finance.
will go to finance. I'll try my best to get them to take up the stained glass on the floor. They
Right.
could vote me down
Right.
and say, now, let's send it to and I'll just say, okay, you just
Right,
told the
of
deal,
course, right.
you know.
Okay.
So
So-
when this goes in, how much detail do you give the city council at this point? I mean, you get all the applications, right?
Well,
And then our recommendation, does it have any detail on it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
the CPA organization website has some great examples of the way other communities have handled this. And I think you would want to do a recommendation, or written recommendations, laying things out anyway. But we have models from other communities. that-
Yeah, that's what this is,
Yes.
the beginning of, but there's a lot more detail than that I'm supposed to go into for each project that says what their matching funds are and why it's a priority and so forth.
So
In
any, go
Practically,
ahead.
practically speaking, here's what's gonna happen. It's gonna go to finance, right? It'll have the package that we've looked at here,
Mhm.
right? And whether it's Joe McGivern or Dave Bar, any of the committee chairmen, if there's people there from the public, though it's not a public hearing, but if there's something they'd like to say, they'll give them a chance to say it. Then they're gonna study it. The members of the committee will discuss it. And
If they don't-
they're gonna send it to the full city council, no matter what. They're gonna vote, we recommend to deny it, we recommend to approve it, we send it with no recommendation. It's gonna be one of the three, and it's gonna go on the next agenda. It's pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, and if the finance committee has questions, they'll ask those people to come in and.
Yeah, they
so
could-
Yeah, that's a possibility.
They
that
could
might-
table it, but
yeah,
at this,
Yeah,
point, I could probably answer those questions, or if we had somebody.
Right,
Which is why it's nice to have you on
Committee
board.
there, you know, yeah.
right,
Do you
well,
think that you can meet before April 16th?
Joe McGivern sets the, he sets the agenda.
Or add an extra.
I'll ask him about that.
So, having heard that, do you think it's wise to notice the applicants on this list of the status of their process, that it is going to city council and maybe to finance committee? If
When
I
we
were an
know-
applicant, I might want to, I would want to
Right,
know that.
exactly, and when we know what the date's gonna be, yes, we can let them know,
Okay,
yeah. When-
just
when-
so that they want to go if there's
That's a good
questions
point.
about,
Yeah,
But it's gonna be on the agenda. The agenda's posted just like,
yeah,
Ours
no,
is
but
a
I never in
finance.
my life looked at a
I
city
know, me
council.
neither.
if I was asking for 200,000.
Yeah, I'd look.
I'd look at the deal.
Well, I would want to know, but if I could be surprised and not know that this even happened, right? I mean, I'll call my
Yeah,
two that
yeah.
are on here and make sure they know.
Emails like, your project's coming up.
Or I could do it.
Or you, we'll see, we'll talk about it. Okay, so I'm gonna ask Joe to meet early.
So just to be clear, our goal is to get something to Mike by the end of this week.
By noon on Friday,
He needs it by Friday.
noon.
We can do that in your section.
For the stained glass, yeah, I mean,
But what about the others though?
oh, you need all of them?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll do the best I can, you know, it would, I don't know if Andrew is around, or, Andrew, can I consult with you if I had a quick question via email?
Yeah, I can give you a call, we can walk through
Okay.
it.
That'd be good. So why do you need, I thought it's just the stained glass one that's needed right away, but you're saying all of them?
Well, Gloutak, you want the Gloutak to go to?
Yeah, well, yeah, Gloutak is, well, it's time sensitive.
Well, if I'm gonna do it by Friday, I may as well put them all on
I
one
would.
order.
Not on
I
one
would
order.
not.
Not on, that makes
Why?
it different. Because.
No,
one-
the
They're
stained
gonna
glass
go,
should
then
go
they'll go to
separate.
committee.
Right.
Even though I'm sending them both to you at the same time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we don't want
I'm gonna-
stained
I'm
glass
gonna-
to go to finance. We want it to get voted on right away.
Okay.
I can't pull, I can
Okay.
pull the entire order out, I can't pull one sentence out of the order to
Mhm.
vote on.
Uh-huh.
I have to-
Okay.
All right,
Exactly.
So,
So-
all right, so by Friday, just send you the two separate orders.
two separate
Okay.
orders.
So I just have one more question. When the city councilors vote, they would take them separately, right? Even though we put it in as a joint?
They
Or
could,
no?
they could take them, they
They
can
could
vote
res-
on.
So they could do
Yeah,
whatever
because they have the
Because it
right
makes
to
sense.
approve, reject,
Yeah,
use.
each project is voted on.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Then the fun ones will start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so, anything else now on that whole discussion? Okay, so I'm gonna let you, are you in a hurry to roll or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I know.
Marco, do you mind if she
No, of
goes
course not.
first? Okay, all right, so.
What's your name?
Kathy.
Her name is Kathy and she's from the,
Your last name?
Ortiz.
Ortiz. Okay, got it.
And we should get an address for the record. Your home address, please, just for our minutes.
Excuse me?
Home
Oh,
address.
my home address is
Yeah.
40 Southwest Street.
Thank you.
Apartment 4F.
she,
So it's right?
and you're from what church? The church that's
It's Iglesia Incomparable, Spanish Church of God.
a Spanish Church of God and it's the
Spanish,
one,
Spanish of Incomparable God. So.
Incomparable.
Yeah.
okay, it's the one that's on the corner of Appleton and Walnut, which has the fence around it. That, you know, you have to drive out and around and nobody can walk around. Okay, so according to what Kathy told me the other day, that they're under orders from the city to fix it, or else, you know, the city's suing them to get it done, and they don't want to use their church. I mean, the church, that's one thing. But the part that we may want to discuss is that they also use it as a community center, where they give out food and clothes to people.
Yeah.
So this is where the legal nexus is gonna turn, whether we can fund that and help them out with this. And it's an emergency, because the city's suing them to get this work done, or else the city's gonna take it. and then, you know, which, I don't know why they would want it, but, you know, that's what they do. And then, of course, they won't have the church, and they won't have the community center, but the nexus is that whether that community projects that they do is enough of a, you know, if it's enough to be able to use the funding, CPA funding for. Because it actually, and it says this, if you look at the wording in there, it says, we know that if we fund a project that is a community project that's part of a church, that we are helping the church, because, you know, you can't help but help the church, but it has to be, the main thing has to be for the community project part of it.
No, I mean, pardon, Madam Chairman, for interrupting you, excuse me, I shouldn't have burst out like that. It just reminds me that Stuart Saganor, when he first talked to us, he said, if you're gonna do anything with the church, have your attorney be with you at all times. We can talk to where hell freezes over. We're not lawyers. And he said the Massachusetts Supreme Court just had a ruling on it.
Yes,
And even
they
the
did.
Supreme Court judge.
That's the Acton case.
That's what I was talking
Right, well, they even said, for we mere mortals, you better do it with a lawyer, because there's a
Yes.
fine line between
Yes,
being
that's what I'm
acceptable and
saying.
not.
Right.
Well, I don't think we should, this is neither.
No, I'm not saying that we decide anything on our own here. I'm just bringing this up as to whether we want to move forward with this at all, even exactly with what.
Could we hear from Kathy directly
Yeah,
about
exactly.
what work needs to be done and what happened with the church? I'd just like to get some background.
Before we get into that, I think I can help Kathy with this, because I've been involved in a couple of these, and I've talked to the building commissioner about this. There's another way to approach it under the historic preservation. And I believe whether it's a church or not, and I think this avoids a lot of the legal questions. If it's facade work on any historic building, visible to the public, and this was one of the problems in Modern Girls, not on the inside, but visible to the public, any member of the public from the outside, all right? A lot of those legal things and a lot of those restrictions.
But that was probably the argument though in Acton also. So
Yes, it was.
It's not. They were
But
arguing.
so what?
It's a historic icon. They might have won.
Right, I mean,
you know, if they-
It was built- it
Just
was
because
built
six
in
people
1860.
in Acton were not happy with funding of a church and filed suit, doesn't mean we shouldn't consider.
No, I'm not saying,
Funding.
I'm just giving you all the
Yeah,
information.
but that's a much more clear-cut way to go about it than
Yeah.
because of a social service provided by the church.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, I
Oh,
mean,
So
that's
that's-
just fit into one of the
That's
categories, right?
historic
Historic
icon.
preservation, open space,
Correct.
and affordable housing. So it's not gonna be open space and it's not gonna be affordable housing. The only place it can go is in historic preservation.
Right. So, say that, and also, all the work that needs to be done is facade outside work.
If that's how it works.
Right. It's-
How much
None
are
of
we
it's,
talking about?
none of it's structural. Well, now I'll let you talk, because I haven't heard any of the estimates yet and stuff like that. so.
Okay, so the first thing that I want to say is thank you for receiving me here, for having me here. The second thing is I was listening her when she was talking about another church that needs to be work done. So the main thing that we did in the church is like serving 300,000 people during the year. So we were like the biggest pantry in the area Springfield, Chicopee, and Holyoke. So we were like the biggest one. And but there was a fact because of the like the bell from the church like fall down a little bit.
The bell from the what?
From the church, like from the tower. Yeah, from the tower. So the part that is affected on the church is the south part. So because of that, we kind of like do nothing in the church. We need to fix that. Several things, or fix that or take the tower down, which is part of the historical building. So the building was built in 1860 something. I think I heard from the pastor that it was built the same year that Holyoke was declared a city. So it was the same year. So it's gonna cost us like around 200,000 something just to fix that part of the building. For more information, if you want like more information, I think the pastor has that information, and also the lawyers we have that are working with us now, because the city sued us. The reason why the city sued us was because we don't have the plan to like rebuild the church. So they sue us because we don't give them like the plan, like the structural plan. We don't like give them the plan for do the work that we need to be done in 3 weeks. So we don't want to lose the church, and the other things that are going around that I think lawyers is the better people to give that information because they know best. But I think if we can like fix the church, like fix outside the facade, as he said, it's gonna like we can serve the people that we were serving. So I don't know where all these 300,000 families were to have food right now, but obviously they are affected because of that. So also we give like away gift for children on that in 3 Kings Day, so that is affected too because of that. We also do community service. Plus that, the other thing that we were planning to do is like have a resource center for families to go. Let's say if they need help with SNAP, SNAP, or let's say housing or all this stuff. So we were planning to have that too, so we can have like the church completely as a social center for families to go to get help. But it was affected because of that, so those plans can be no more. So
I have a question for you, because when I looked on the Facebook page for the church, it seemed like this collapse occurred a year ago.
yeah,
or a year
it was
ago.
it was in February 16, 2018. So
So
that's
then
been
if
like
this-
a year. I mean, already, right? Almost a month.
So if this is a kind of emergency type of proposal, I'm just wondering, like, did you know about CPA before? Like, what is the reason for submitting it now?
So
since you-
I think I was thinking about when he said the approach to because I was thinking myself, is there like a funding like we can go to talk and like ask for funding so the church can be declared as a historical like building, and then we can approach those funds. I didn't know about that, he said, but that was exactly my thinking. So I learned because of about the CPA funds, like I could say like 1 month ago or weeks ago, when the pastor told me that there was a fund. Like they have a conversation with the ex-mayor here, chairman person. So
He was at our public hearing that we had back in July at the senior center.
Yeah.
And I told him he was there, he knew all the information and what he had to do about getting an application.
So
Check an
I think it was a
application.
misunderstanding in
Yeah.
that information, or maybe he doesn't understand that very well. So, but I always was thinking about, is there a way that the church can access to those funds through that, like declaring the church as a historical building? Because, like we like it or not, there's a lot of story there. You know, like from the when the city, like the city of Hollywood was declared like city, that church was building too. Like the canal was building too in the same year. So a lot of things are happening like around of that. So is there a way that we can access through those funds? Not because we are a church, just because it's part of the story of Hollywood, and second because we do community service. You know, like we are often we'll not be able to do housing because it's not a big space, of course, but at least like doing the community service that we were doing to the community. So we serve like 5 days a week, like Mondays, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturdays. So there were like a lot of days.
What is your deadline for when you need funding?
Lawyers are trying to gain like 3 more weeks. Like a lot of time. So we have like 5 options now, and one of them is like come in and try to have like emergency fund, so we can win time with the city of Holyoke about that. So
So
let's see.
if you put a plan together, would that give you more time?
Yeah.
To do
So
what, I'm sorry?
if they put a plan together?
Yeah, we need a plan. We need to put a plan. But the thing that was happening is like, because I don't want you guys to think that we were not doing nothing. We were doing stuff. But the person that we have, I don't want to expose like anybody in the spot. So we have a person, and apparently things that didn't went through. So by the time we need to submit those documents to the city hall, it was like the time was like past already. So nobody like can respond. The person like in charge of that doing that can respond on time. So it's like things like getting like putting together. So now we have this situation because that's it.
So for the committee, the city has formed what's called a problems property group, right? And I'm not quite sure of all the people on it, but I know the fire chief is on it, the police chief is on it, the building commissioner is on it. I don't know if there's, Marcos is on it. I think Marcos
Marcos is on it, but I couldn't even.
or John Dye, they're represented. So what they do typically, they're in a hard spot, but as long as any, and we've gone through this in city council now several times, as a matter of fact, it was an order that was just up to review some of the problem properties with the legal department, was last week. So what they do is now, as long as somebody's showing some progress, that they have a plan, and that they're making some progress, and can update it every 3 months, there's not going to be any action on the part of the city. And that's also from a practical standpoint. If the city was to sue and win, we'll end up owning another Essex house.
Right.
All right, so it's to keep the pressure, it's to keep monitoring the thing, keep the pressure on, to keep it going forward, right? But the goal of the city is not to take any properties. That's for damn sure. All right. So the fact that they've got some attorneys that they're starting to formulate a plan. If they start putting this forward, the city would back off on its actions, and it's nothing we'd have to jump in and fund tomorrow. They do have a bigger problem than just that, because it is starting to collapse on the alley side also now. So it's with any of these buildings, when the mortar starts to go, you better take some fast action. The fact that it's been a year now, I'd say if this thing goes through another couple of what's called freeze-thaw cycles, it is going to be a much bigger problem. So.
Well, and by a plan, do you mean an architectural plan, or just a plan for how the process
So
is
we
set
already
up?
have the thing that happened was we find an architect that did the structure plan. So when we present that to the city hall, they say this is not good. So you need to
the building commissioner when you
Yeah.
meet city hall.
So
Yeah, okay.
you need to put down the tower. So after, we also have an engineer, a structural engineer person. So we have like everything.
Mhm.
So the thing that the city asked us to do was find another structural engineer and another architect, and then put a plan together for like the steps to follow. Like this is that you're gonna rebuild first, and this is la la la. So all the plan that you're gonna do for construction, for reconstruction,
Right.
whatever it is,
Okay.
like putting down the tower or whatever it is, like pointing the tower from the inside, whatever work they want to do.
So do
So,
you-
but we have a constructor, like a person to do that, but the person didn't on time, so the person like disappeared from the like the scene from a while.
Okay.
So by the time we need to submit that, the time passed already.
So you had a contractor that was going to put the plan together from the architect's work and the engineer's work. So you need another contractor.
We need another contractor. I think we can afford that. The thing that we need, and the money that we have for doing that is like going down. It's like, I think in total we have like, I could say like $60,000, maybe $50,000. So we don't have like more than that because we have to use the money like either for pay.
So that wouldn't be enough to put a plan together?
No, it's not gonna be enough because, and I think things are gonna like get worse if we don't submit like a plan for the city hall. So lawyers are trying to buy us time to see if this is a possibility, then we can present that to the city hall, let's say, so they can see that we're doing stuff and we're doing the stuff that they ask us to do. So we need now we need to find another architect. The architect that we have is sick with cancer in the hospital. So that was like a lot of things happening together. So now we need to find another architect.
Okay, so if you put an application before us you'll have to get what it would cost for a contractor and for the contractor to put the plan together and including the cost of the architect and the engineer, and put that before us and as an application, plus the letter from the historical commission that they need to prove that it's historical commission significance, because I don't think it's on any historical district, any listing anywhere. So, get that for us and, as soon as you can and, put it before us and we'll discuss it. I mean.
Madam Chairman, if I may, sorry to interrupt again, and also a letter from your lawyer that says, we've investigated this and this meets all the guidelines of the recent Massachusetts Supreme Court ruling, that your attorney says, yes, we meet all the guidelines. As an attorney, I can say, we're good to go legally. That's not our responsibility, this board, to say that. But your attorney has to be paid.
Determine that.
And determine that,
Yeah.
and research it and do that.
May I say something? So I didn't know that this meeting was like, I need to come like to this meeting so soon, but my plan was like having the lawyer in like every single process that I'm gonna do because he's the one who knows best.
Who's the attorney?
I don't remember his name, his last name, but his first name is John something.
Farida?
Huh?
Farida?
No, I don't remember his name, but he knows a lot about Holyoke and he works with another person from Chicopee, so
Go ahead,
I
Marco.
know.
I just would add, it'd be good to know what the recommended work is also, right? Because it sounds like it's repointing, but is it the tower, the whole building, the side on the alley?
It's the south of the alley.
It'd be nice to get some kind of a description of the work that
Perfect.
maybe comes from the
So-
engineer or the architect.
Exactly. So we have all of those documents already. We have the engineer's record, like thing that they did. We also have the document that the architect did, the pictures. So we have like every single thing. I don't know if you wanna go to the meeting, to the committee, historical committee, to have the lawyer with me. I think that's the wise thing to do first, if you agree with that, or I don't know. And the second thing, if you want those documents, I can send it like for you and for you as well.
Like any of these other projects, it'd be good to know that the work being done on that project and the monies that go toward it were all for, good purpose, and that we don't donate the money and then the work doesn't get done in time and then, the building falls down or something, or like any of these other projects, we sort of vetted what the kind of work was done, so that when the funds become allocated, they're implemented and then it saves the building. It doesn't.
Well, everyone else already had their architectural plans and everything else done.
Right.
And they weren't getting sued by the city, so, it's not.
So I do have a
Sure.
question
Yeah.
regarding to that. When let's say we do all the submit, write the papers that you want for the architect, the structural engineer, the cost from that is gonna took for building, rebuilding the tower or repointing the tower or putting down the tower, whatever is gonna happen. So, do the committee from historical need to like do some comments in how's that is gonna be done, or it's gonna like,
So I think when we requested a letter of recommendation, a letter of recommendation from the Holyoke Historical Commission, it's only so that we know that that's a historic building that they're interested in.
it should be say the same, right? That's why, kind of.
I'm not sure, say the same.
Let's say the tower should stay the
stay
same,
the
or,
same.
Oh,
like
Or
outside of the
just that
facade.
they would give their opinion that this is an important historic building to Holyoke.
So no, can be like no change, we cannot do no
well,
change.
a letter that's.
No, we're not talking about change, we're just talking about,
Do they recognize?
So, in part of the application process for funding for historical properties, it either has to be on a state or national list, or the local historical commission has to give you a letter that says it's a property of historical significance in their opinion. That lets you qualify for funding if you have that letter. Then the second question, I think, is, and that's something we've been wrestling with, does the historical commission have input as to how they want to see? Because they can say the property's historical funded. We've been in dialogue with them to say, like, what kind of restrictions on the rehabilitation of that building do historical commission want to see? But we're not really bound by that,
Okay.
you know, so.
That's exactly.
I mean, it could be a big deal, right? I mean, that could make it, you know, one of the things we've recognized is like certainly complying with all the historical conditions of property restoration could be very expensive and make it, it's not viable, it's not. So we want to get as close to, I think, historically accurate as it can be, but we also don't want it to be so close that it's pushing things that are, so they're not viable. I mean, have you pulled an application? Have you looked at what the CPA funding
well,
application
it's
looks
not on the
like?
website right now because the deadline is over, but I was gonna make sure that we exchanged emails so that you can, I can send you that, you know, if you wanna, right? And I wanna also mention, that you were right earlier, I think as Mike was saying, that, in terms of CPA, Elaine, like whether the use of the building, like the fact that it's kind of like the flat situation. It really, yes, it's nice to know that, you know, it serves a community purpose, but in terms of CPA for funding, in this case, that isn't really one of the areas, like, because it's not community housing, right? It's the area, the category it fits into is the historic resource. If, you know, the Holyoke Historic Commission says, yes, this building is significant, that's, you know.
But just,
However,
yeah, just because a building's historic, that doesn't mean we have to fund it.
No, I'm
we
not
don't
saying
have
that,
to,
I'm just
but-
saying that if you were to fund it, it wouldn't be because they're good things that they're doing in the community. That's not what's allowable for
no, but
CPA.
does that help you
That's-
make the argument about the public benefit?
Yes, exactly.
Are you stuck, you know?
Yeah.
Legally, yeah,
No,
it does.
doesn't.
What do you-
It's not the way that CPA law works. I mean, it's this chart I'm looking at. You can
No,
look
I-
at this
But
chart.
if you have to look at the
I mean,
ruling for that.
no, what they say is in
Yeah.
terms of use, the committee could say, we only want to fund a church that also is doing good work for the community, but that's just a committee decision. That's not what's allowable for CPA.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, as we
So
were
it's like a
talking
plus.
earlier
Yeah.
about CPA funding going to projects with public benefit, even though it's a historical, okay,
Yeah.
you could say, I'd say it's a historical property, but it also has in addition this public benefit of serving as a
But
food
it,
pantry
just
and other
because the
things.
church is historical, that doesn't mean we can fund
Of
it as a
course.
church. We
Right.
can't fund
No,
it.
I'm not
No,
that's
saying
right.
that at all.
So
I'm
that's
just
why you
giving
have to have this other.
Well,
So-
no, what I'm saying is if you were gonna argue the public benefit, it would be more that this is an iconic,
Well, well,
church
that-
of Holyoke that was built at the year that Holyoke became a city. I don't know if it would hold water
I
to
don't
talk
If
about.
it wasn't a historical property, but there's nothing wrong with it having two public benefits.
That's true, I just
So,
don't know if
I
that.
would, so grab an application, start working on an application. We're happy to help you. I'm happy to help you to try to navigate this system,
Right.
this process. It's complicated, you know, and you're coming in with a big ask and it's the last minute and we've kind of done a lot of other things. But the system does allow that, you know, it does allow us to take in things like this into account. It's competing for other funding too, you know, you have to recognize that, but I think
Are
you're
there
onto
other
something.
grants?
I mean,
Yeah.
I think you're on,
Yeah.
this may be a source of funding for you. I don't know all of it, part of it, some of it. I would encourage you to get an application and to start
Yeah.
filling. It's not a very complicated application, but you can hear the questions like how much money do you need? What's the budget? What are you gonna spend the money for?
Okay.
But that,
Yeah, we need to present a strategic plan.
Yeah,
And you should start to look at what other grants you might be able to get if you get some funding from CPA that you could leverage.
It makes it a lot stronger, your application stronger, if you have a potential match, you know, from another funding source.
Okay.
So some of them require, you know, a local funding source in order for you to be eligible.
Okay.
So you
So
might wanna look
we're
into
gonna
that.
do those
Yeah.
local grants or
Right.
um,
Or state grants.
well,
or state grants.
Yeah.
Right.
I would do my research tonight when I came up from the other meeting I had. So
What did you say?
I would do my research
Okay.
tonight, tomorrow,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday.
So can we fund the plan?
You're gonna give me
We
your
can't,
email.
right?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
No,
I wish we could. I don't think we can. It has to be visible, right? I mean, you have to see it.
No, I don't
Well,
think
we can-
that's
we
a
can-
pre-development.
Why don't we can fund that, I mean, as
Yeah.
long as, yes.
We can, their engineering work, their design work?
Sure,
no,
as
I
long
don't
as
think
it's,
we should. Why
as long-
should we?
as long
If
as
it gets
it's,
it to the next phase.
as long as it's for the historical part, just like, who was it, Mike Moriarty, when he was here, talking about the architect, he wanted to pay for the architect. We can pay for the architectural part of the historical, part that's gonna be, you know,
Yeah,
done.
relevant.
Relevant to the, but we can't pay for the whole
Well,
architect.
in a way, it's more similar to the feasibility, the pre-development activities for the developer incentive.
Right,
You know, so it's
exactly.
a different project, but, I mean, especially like Marco was bringing up, or Marcos, sorry, did I say it wrong? That, you know, if you want to know like what the plan is, so in a way, it might be in the committee's interest to have a plan, you know,
Right.
like
Can
see
I-
how it goes first.
Just from a practical point, I would not want to fund $25,000 or $50,000 to a structural engineer or an architect to come forward and tell me this is going to cost $500,000.
Right.
But
Right?
but
I
here's the thing,
think, I think somebody else, that's got to be part of the,
but here's the thing, that
that'd be a complete
the
waste of money.
city's suing them because they don't have a
The
plan.
city is not suing them.
Well,
The city has threatened to sue them. They're using,
Scare tactics.
for lack of a better word. They gotta keep the pressure, not only on this group, but all of the other landlords. Because that, just like the Catholic diocese, just like anybody that owns an apartment block or anything else, there's a landlord, there's a building, and the building's deteriorating, and the landlord's got to have pressure put on him in whatever venues possible to keep it going forward, or the city is gonna be stuck with another property and a $500,000 bill to tear it down in the name of public safety.
but here's the thing, the city is asking them for a plan.
Right.
So can you afford to do the plan?
We can.
You can afford to do the
Mhm.
plan. So then go ahead and do the plan, and then you're gonna come to us to fund the actual
A little
project.
budget for the plan, right?
Yeah.
This is what our plan is, and this is what it's gonna cost to execute.
So next
That's a
step
much
is,
easier finance. There's a lot of work though, I
Yeah.
mean, and time, but, I mean, again, I would encourage you to keep on this process. I mean, I think this is a kind of project that,
it's
you
worth
know,
it, so
especially in
great.
this city, that these funds could be allocated toward. And nobody's committing to anything, you understand that.
Yeah, I
but-
understand
But
that.
get application
But if
together.
it were there, I would try like every single option.
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean,
have, you know?
what you do is important.
So if you have enough money for the plan, plan and you submit that to the city, then that gives you how much more time, do you think?
Now we have for getting an answer like 3 weeks. So the next step will be talking to the lawyers and said that the conversation we have here and with the church to the pastor. Like told them that you encourage to submit the application, but we need to have a construction plan. And then we need to come with that information for you.
Yes.
Right.
So if you-
That's it.
yeah.
If we
And if
if we
you-
can submit that to the city hall, then they say okay, and they gave us like the time that we need to come with that plan, like the architect, the structural engineer, like the contractor, like everything. Then if we can by doing that, then we'll do it that. Then let's see. So I'm gonna go with this information to the pastor and lawyers, and then fill out the application, and then whatever information the city hall gave us, then I send it to you, right? To let you know, like
Yeah,
they say yes, this is the time you have.
When you say the city hall, you mean this committee?
No.
She's talking about building commission.
Oh,
okay.
But I'm still a little unclear, like, if you are able to fund the plan, how much more time would you have?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know? Okay.
No.
All right. I was thinking, I
Yeah.
don't know
As
how.
long as the plan doesn't come back and say the building's gonna fall down next week, you know?
So.
But it is deteriorating.
I don't have the answer because we need to find another architect, we need to find another structural engineer, and we need to find another constructor. So,
I just wanted to mention that I think, I'm not sure how the committee feels, but I think it would be a good idea to add, for your application to include the reasoning for, the emergency situation, why
it's
you're
not-
applying
yeah.
now. Like, I think that would be important to have that on the record.
Yes.
So I can adjust the application or something, or add that question. Just the committee agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
thank you
Coming
so
in.
much for having me today. I hope you have a great night. And I need to go because I have another meeting that I need to be with.
Wow. What's your position
Keep up the good
at
work.
the church?
I am
Okay, you got 20 minutes, Mark.
Sure, I think I can do this pretty quickly. So I did attend the Holyoke Historical Commission meeting last night. It's funny because Mike Moriarty was there as well.
Thank you.
So I asked them, I'm going to read from an email that Amy and Elaine, you had sent to Richard Almstrom, the chair. It had these 4 questions of issues that we were looking for from the Holyoke Historical Commission. Since you don't have copies of it, I'll have to I'll read it. These areas which we wanted their input on was, one, we're saying that we're interested in your expertise on the nature of the proposed work and whether the proposed work is appropriate from a historical preservation point of view. Can you give us your input? They said, of course. I'm not sure why this year took so long. I think I started in August contacting them, and I blame myself because maybe I just wasn't able to make it happen. But I believe next year, for applicants that want to pursue the historical preservation approach, we should make it mandatory to have them have some kind of letter of recommendation from the Holyoke Historical Commission. Because if it's not a property that's already, or evidence of some designation or something that says that it is historic,
It
because,
does say that on the application,
Yeah,
on
we
the
have
front page. It
letter.
says they have to have that.
okay, so we didn't get that from,
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we did. For all the
but what about Canal Street didn't have one? Did it? It had
Oh.
that vague, kind of like.
Well,
it's kind
they
in
sort
a
of
history.
gave, it was a little unclear, but now I think she has sent me that.
Right. So,
But it's asking for more detail, like, do you agree with this proposed work?
so we can work, I believe that when we get next year's batch of applications, we should identify which ones are claiming historical preservation. We should bundle the package, send it to the Historical Commission, and ask them for their input on each individual one.
Right.
And I believe that for us, gives us, guidelines to either fund or not fund, but based on, true, because for instance, I'll jump ahead. I asked them about the plaster restoration, and they discussed it a little bit, and
At the
they said.
flats?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Are you talking about
Three
flats?
now.
Excuse me, yes, 43 Canal Street, One Holyoke, CBC. And, they discussed it among themselves, and those same arguments came up. Do we restore it to one period of time, 1880s, or do we restore it to another? And they unanimously voted to restore the plaster,
Oh,
because they're saying that, it has a social significance, it's been like that since 1935, there's no reason to bring it back to its original roots, because there are other examples, they discussed that. But we should be receiving, I'll solicit a letter, because in the end, there was a motion that what's the correct word, that they're in agreement that they recommend, they wanted to do a recommendation that the application proceed as written, that is, restore the plaster. So we were looking for some kind of, the same sort of thing, a recommendation on one way or the other. That's the way they decided, it was unanimous. And for us, it would be easier to have known that in the
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah.
So next year, if I'm still on the committee and doing that, I think I would right away push for, let's take this badge and send it over. I would probably present it personally at their meeting. I think we would try to give them 1 or 2 months, because I think we would have time, next.
I think to accomplish that, we'd have to get the ball rolling much sooner.
Exactly,
have
so
the
as
application
soon as
date
the application
sooner.
deadline passes.
But sooner than November 3rd, you know what I mean? Like,
Well-
start the process sooner.
Or maybe in the preliminary works, we could.
Yeah, everything
Let them
should be
know.
started
Sure,
sooner.
Well, no, yeah.
I'm not sure where the hitch was. I'd spoken to Richard Almstrom numerous times. We had them at our
It's
meeting.
our first year.
I said that too, but, so, I believe, so the answer to that question, would they help us? Yes. I think it's gonna take us to go before them and say, here's the next batch, here's what we wanna know. Here's their, I guess if they're required to have a letter, then they would either, agree.
So does that mean that Debbie she did get the approval, I think, from Marcos to devote hours to
So
work?
interestingly, Debbie is no longer the
Oh.
Holyoke Historical Commission secretary.
Oh, okay.
Marcos Marrero was there last night representing the planning board and as their secretary, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, so there was something that happened there. I'm not sure exactly what it was. I don't believe it involved us directly, but in part, I believe we were part of some kind of, she was omitting information, and that might have contributed to their non-response.
So she no longer works for?
I believe she's there, but she doesn't work as the
Okay.
historical commission
Okay.
secretary.
Wow.
She still works for the planning department, I believe. I haven't followed her.
So who is going to take her place?
I don't know. As I said, Marcos Marrero was there last night.
Okay.
So, the first question, I think we're good. I believe that next year, knowing that this was an issue this year, we'll get it out front early. And if the letter of historic designation is in question, we'll specifically ask for clarification from the person, from the applicant, as well as from the historical commission. If there is no letter, then we would ask for a recommendation. The second item under question had to do with could the Holyoke Historic Commission take on the role of overseeing our awarded historic rehabilitation projects to ensure that the proposed work meets the U.S. Secretary of Interior standards for historic rehabilitation? Could the HCC staff review contractors review contractors/vendors for project to ensure their quality? And that was a resounding no. They don't have the resources.
What a surprise.
No, and I don't believe we do either, so.
No.
Yeah, so that answer was no. They said that meeting the standards was not a part of theirs or our, they said, scope of work. And then they asked, what do other CPA commissions do to make sure that when you award money, the work is done at the end? I mean, there are certainly procedures in the architectural business, I know, I do that, but I'm not sure, does the commission go and look at the building and say, great, you did a good job, and then award them.
A lot of them do site visits. Yeah.
So,
How would you qualify, why have qualified historical architects with us?
I mean, should we get a report?
Well,
if
maybe
it's a
for
big enough-
next funding round, some of the admin money could go towards some kind of consultant, you know?
They pay for it.
Can we find out what other commissions do regularly? This must come up all the time. They award money, it's time to hand it over, they look at the completed work.
Well, one of the ways they do it is through the Holyoke Historic Commission. That's what I learned, which is why I asked the question.
Amy, they're not gonna do that. They're not qualified to do that.
I know. But that's why I asked that question, because they often work with their historic commission on it.
So maybe there's a
But I'll
model
try to
that we
find
can
out
propose.
what
Maybe
other
that's,
people do.
maybe that's something that we can discuss in-house when we're not pressed for time. Maybe create some kind of procedure where,
Yeah, because we're gonna have to think about it in the future, because clearly, I mean, we can, site visits, well, we gotta say we're not qualified to. do
Right,
that.
that's true.
Maybe if you're gonna have a proposal, you're gonna have $200,000 to restore this historical thing. Add another $50,000 to hire this architect from Boston, who's a registered historical architect, as a third party, independent third party to say, yeah, that paint looks good. Okay, he signed off, we're happy.
Yeah.
We can't take
I mean,
that.
No, I agree. We can't take
Let them pay for it.
now imagine the opposite. You go there, you say, this is all wrong.
Yeah, well,
We're not gonna give you the
that's
money.
on them.
That- Yeah, but they might,
But there have been, as you point out, other people have done this, there must be established ways that other scratch for funds.
But we shouldn't pick up the tab to hire some guy to say, that's a good coat of paint. I mean, that's not our problem. That's your problem.
Part of our administrative funds can be used for
You
consultants.
can't even pay the secretary.
No, That's
We
this,
can pay a
that's
consultant.
that's this year. We are pressed for
Well,
funds.
Yeah, and the reason
Well, fine.
it's important, Mike, is because it helps to protect, you know, the city's interests, and it
So let the
shows.
city pay for it.
But it also protects the committee to show that we were doing what was.
Or you
Wait.
build into an agreement as part of the funding that says, before this money goes out, you have to come in with a certified historical architect who's gonna say, it was done in accordance with the plan,
Exactly, and you pay for it.
and they pay for it.
And that's it, you don't get the money.
Right.
In the
But
story.
you're still trusting, because if there's a
Well, you're
conflict.
trusting a
Can I just
certified
finish?
historic architect, yes.
There could be a conflict of interest because they're hiring it, and so they might get somebody.
Not some guy on a scale of his
Can I
whole
just finish what
livelihood
I'm
is gonna
saying?
mess around
They might
for.
get somebody who cuts corners to save money. It does happen, so
Well,
it's just.
We're
We're getting
Rob
ahead of
Banks. I mean,
ourselves.
Yeah,
guys.
again,
Yeah.
We're
again,
way
we
ahead of
are-
ourselves,
yeah.
right? now.
But we are,
all
we're only by a little bit, because if we are talking about funding projects under historical restoration, then we need to think about what that agreement, what we want, or are we just, again,
Well,
city solicitor, you deal with it, it's not our,
When
No, we
someone,
will have to look up how other people deal with it. I don't think we're
Right.
getting ahead of ourselves right now because none of us know the answer and
When
we're
some-
arguing about stuff where we're basically all in agreement that this has to be addressed.
Yes.
when someone submits an invoice from a company that's done the work, it should have to be a company that's certified historical.
Yes, it has to be.
So that's where we'll be able to have our oversight right there.
But this is
because
also
Yes.
why
I don't
we
know
put
of
the
such a
hand down the road on
certification
those
that
other projects
contractors
because
have.
we weren't ready to.
I mean,
Yeah.
No,
I thought you
it's a
said they
consultant, you have to be an architect, historical architecture.
not the contractor.
No, not the
Well, not
contractor.
whatever, whoever,
No,
someone has to
architect.
be,
An
someone has
architect,
to
it's
be.
gotta be an
Yeah,
architect.
so I right away thought, well, I do this all the time. I go on a job site visit, it's punch list time, I walk around, I say, oh, wait a minute, you know, there's a scratch here, you gotta patch that up, or you did something here, you gotta do that. Document it, send it to them, but I don't know that I just wanna, I mean, that might serve us temporarily, but you know, we should have a systematic way of checking on that for all the projects going forward. And maybe other commissions have dealt with this in a way that would be acceptable to us. I don't know how to look to see, but maybe we ask some, you know, maybe East Hampton, Northampton.
Yeah, well, I'm in contact with some other CPA staff people, and I might have even asked them this question before, because there's been so much back and forth that I can send, you know.
A place like Pine Bluff, put them on retainer.
I think just ask what the other commissions do. I think that's a good next step.
Yeah, and then we'll go from there.
So what do you do if your historic commission can't do this one?
So the
Okay.
third item here, just trying to keep the schedule here. Under CPA, the CPA is required to record perpetual preservation restrictions for CPA-funded acquisitions of historically significant resources approved and signed off by the Mass Historical Commission. I'll go and read. There is a possibility that the CPA may require preservation term restrictions for non-acquisition projects as well to protect the city's investment. These restrictions are normally held by the city's historical commission for non-city resources, which in this case would be the Holyoke Historical Commission. Can we confirm with you that we will hold these restrictions? You know, at first they said no, but then Marco said it's not that big of a deal. We do it all the time. So they wanted to defer this for future consideration. That was their official response. Marcos explained with great clarity what that meant, and they were all like, well, yeah, I think we could do this. I think they just haven't done it in the past, so it's something new to them. I believe that if we want to pursue that, we would have to, I imagine, get the chair or the commission, I could meet with them, or we could bring some of the key members here and ask them, again, for certain projects in the very beginning, maybe it's part of the package that we send them at the beginning of the application, at the end of the application process, when we send them the relevant projects, we could include this project requires
When we send who
the Holyoke Historical Commission. Once we bundle those historically relevant projects, part of that might be, will you create a what's it called again? The deed restriction, and then maybe by then we'll know whether it's easy and it's done by the city or. And then that played into the fourth question, which was, will the Holyoke Historic Commission take on the role of reviewing and approving any of the grantees' proposed changes during the term of the restriction to protect the city's investment? At first they said no, but then they said, well, let's take that under consideration as well because it's part of item 3.
Yeah.
Did they have any other comments on the proposed work to be done, or have they not gotten it?
No, they didn't review any of the individual projects. Because Mike Moriarty was there, and recognizing him, I right away brought up that issue because I said, we need you for situations like this. This is perfect. We've been asked to do something. We don't know if it's, the appropriate measure. And on the one hand it is, on the other hand it isn't. We would like a recommendation, and so that's why they put it to a vote. And somebody made I move that we, and so they literally put it to a vote. I expect, I can email Richard and ask him to give me whatever it is they're writing up. They're writing up some kind of letter of recommendation to proceed with the project as submitted.
For the flats?
I'm only talking about the 43 Canal Street, because that was, for us, I think that was one of the biggest questions in terms of the historic and significance of one or the other. After that, let's see, that's all my notes. We discussed those 4 items, and then specifically the 43 Canal Street.
Okay. Does anybody have
Thank you very much.
Sure,
Thank you.
I gotta say, I feel responsible, and I'm always like kicking myself for like, well, why? And yet it seemed insurmountable for some reason. I don't know why. I think my first emails were from this summer, and I'm not sure what had it, why it took so long. But I believe if we start early next month, or not next month, at the next cycle, and I believe if we don't send them every, just the historically correct, and then literally a checklist. Maybe it's, if we have a question about a letter of recommendation or about some kind of historic significance, maybe we ask them for that, or we ask them for opinions. Maybe we could be even specific with actual questions. Like 43, the question was pretty simple. Do you restore to this era or the other? So this year, if we start early, we'll
That's
want
not
the same issue.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for that and all that. Anybody have any questions at this point in time? No? Okay, so we're meeting tomorrow. I think that's it on the agenda unless someone has other business.
I've got a couple, maybe this is for tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to discuss these other phase 2 projects.
The other part, yeah.
All right, just so everyone else, one of the ones, and one of the questions we've had was about funding an entire project instead of a developer incentive. So on the train station, the price that Hoyle Gas and Electric had was over $1 million on the roof, right? So that's a prevailing wage because it's Hoyle Gas and Electric, all right? So I've contacted an outfit up in Vermont that does slate, and they've had a local guy, I'm gonna mispronounce it, Mahan, look at it, and it's more in the neighborhood of $500,000, which is,
And there
as
was-
I've said before, true of just about every public project, double the price when you go to prevailing wage.
By law, do we have to go with
Well,
prevailing
not
wage?
if it
by
changes
definition?
hands.
No, if it goes to a private developer, right?
Yeah, see, that's the whole point.
So it will cost $1 million to fix the roof and sell it to a developer. It'll cost them $500,000 to fix the roof. So the idea of fixing the roof and turning it over to them costs you twice as
Right,
much.
okay, yeah, that's the law, that's the law.
Prevailing wage, public works.
But that's why they want to get a developer, because so they don't have to do that.
So to me, it makes sense, a developer incentive, they say, I've heard 150,000 isn't gonna incentivize somebody to do $1 million project. Well, it's not $1 million project. 150,000 would give him damn near a third of the price.
Or
Gives them a roof.
Yeah, yeah,
What about plumbing?
And then what's left?
Well,
then that's up to them.
Well, but
the,
it's the same thing, right? I mean, it's gotta be,
no, the big thing, you lose a roof on these buildings, forget the building,
Right.
all right?
to save them.
Right. So if you have a reverter clause, right? If he, right, if he gets the new roof on, he can't finish the project, it comes back to the city with a new roof, not done at prevailing wage.
Why didn't we, would we even put in more money? Like,
Yeah.
like why not do half or three-quarter, the whole roof, like even if it was? I mean, I know we don't have that kind of money now, but.
No, right, exactly.
Well,
and
I
that's
mean,
why-
but ultimately the question is, right, even with a new roof, someone hands you that building, is it viable? I have no idea. It may very well be, but it also wouldn't shock me if it wasn't.
It is viable, that's a granite building.
It's a beautiful building.
And
Yeah,
Richard,
it's
you
either-
just
but
did
what's-
a whole thing on this in East Hampton just
Yeah, I
last
wish we
week.
would pay attention to Hoyle.
Yeah, well.
Hello,
I'll have to chat with them.
Genie.
Presuming we get a developer who's gonna make it into something, the developers could look at it and walk away and say, are you kidding? I'm not putting any
Well,
money for that.
there's so much funding out there, and that was what the
A
whole thing
private
was.
developer.
And
A
Holyoke,
private
I think,
developer.
was invited to go, but no one showed
It's
up.
I mean, there's a reason these buildings are the way they are, right? I mean, if this was, I've done some brownfield work, right? You go in and you spend $1 million or $2 million cleaning up a piece of property that after you've cleaned it up is worth half of what you just spent cleaning it up. But that's not true in Boston or in Manhattan because you clean up these properties and the property values are so
Double.
high, they can absorb those types of things.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, those are the questions about that building.
Yes.
Is it, you're gonna, unless there's funding, that certainly helps, and you could maybe get across, but pure private, if it was pure private doable, it'd be done.
By now, it would have been done.
No,
Um,
nope, nope, nope.
Because of the roof?
The million
Because
that
it's a city, it's not a privately owned property,
Like, if there's a
No,
guy
but they
who
could sell
wants
it.
to make a buck, he can make things move. The guy who's a hustler, he wants to put a supermarket, a restaurant, a bar, whatever the case. If I know I can make a buck, yeah, I'm gonna go to your committee and this guy's committee and that guy's committee. Yeah, let's go. I got the architects, I got this, I got that. But if somebody doesn't show any interest in it, I mean, after all these years, I mean,
Well, this is it, that's why there's 3 of those.
Mike, I hear what you're saying about the cost of the roof, but what I'm wondering is, isn't that $1 million not just for repairing the roof? What they're, estimating?
No, that's just the roof.
That's just the roof.
Oh, okay, that was the
Complete
estimate for the
replacement,
roof, but
right.
the estimate for what the developer's cost will be
Oh,
was for
Nobody
more than
knows.
just the roof.
You don't know until you find out.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
question.
yeah, or what they're, or, yeah, how they
You know,
play it out.
and this is the thing about those 3 projects that have the developer incentives. One of them, I guess, the Armory has some interest, it's my understanding. So I would be more inclined to want to support that for developer interest, developer incentive, rather than the other 2 and say, well, when you have some interest, come back to us. I mean, I don't want to fund those developer incentives now,
But
when there's no interest.
couldn't we lump those 3 together and say, instead of the 450,000, that we're willing to put up 300,000
Or
or?
150.
Or 150, yes. I
And
would
then
be-
the first
yes.
person
You
in
can do
gets
that,
that?
well, that would work for 2 of them, but there's one that already has the interested developer.
Yeah.
That's the Armory, so it doesn't really work for that one, but for the other 2, 123 Pine
Well,
Street.
the other thing is, some of us here may have specific interests in prioritizing one of these buildings over the other.
Uh-huh.
For instance, I mean, I agree the train station is a
Right.
jewel. And I would be personally, if I were simply deciding if I had to pick one of
Right.
these 3 to preserve and it would happen and the other 2 wouldn't, it would be painful that I'd go with that train station. It's beautiful.
So
Pretty
couldn't,
disrespectful, but given that we are meeting tomorrow and this is on the agenda for tomorrow, could we?
Yeah.
adjourn
That's
now?
my fault, I sent this down this morning.
Okay.
All right.
This is going to get very
6:00.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'll make a
so
motion
I won't
we-
be here tomorrow.
Second.
Make a motion to leave?
Okay, second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, everyone.